Hi, I'm Glenn Archisinos from Sophos community, and today we'll be discussing how to automate software deployment for Sophos Central Endpoint Windows devices. For a quick overview, there are multiple ways to deploy Sophos Central Endpoint, including manually installing the software on endpoints, triggering the installation through a startup or logon script via Active Directory group policy, and using Entune or SCCM. Today, we will be using the group policy method, but the steps for Intune or CCM deployment are available in the documentation link on this video description. We'll be following along with the step outlined on the KB article also linked in this video description. There are some prerequisites to keep in mind. We'll be using a startup script as opposed to a login script for the deployment because the installer file sophos-setup.exe requires administrator privilege to run on a device. However, if you're planning to use a login script, keep in mind that the login user will need to be an administrator. And before installation, there are a few software packages that must not be installed on the endpoints or else the installation will fail. This includes Sophos Patch, Sophos Client Firewall, and Sophos Antivirus if web control, data control, or application control has been enabled on the computers. If a device control policy has been applied to a computer, Sophos Antivirus uninstallation requires a restart to unload and reinstall the kernel driver sdcfilter.sys. Possible note about competitor AVs preventing installation. Recommending to remove the competitor before deploying Sophos. Sophos CRT as part of the AV install will try to remove the competitor. This is done using the recorded uninstall string from the registry and can sometimes fail if the additional protections similar to that of a tamper protection are turned on. To manage endpoint devices, the first thing we need to do is to download that central endpoint installer from the central dashboard that will manage your endpoint. Go to Protect Devices. Under Endpoint Protection, select Download Complete Windows Installer. Keep in mind, though the link shows Complete Windows Installer, this is a thin installer that deploys all the features available depending on your license. This means that when you run the installer, it will establish a connection to Sophos Central to check your license and download the rest of the software as needed. Devices must have a connection to the internet for the installation to go through. You'll also need to ensure to allow all traffic to the domain and ports required for communication to and for Sophos Central. The documentation listing this information is available in this video description. If you have devices to protect that can't be connected to the internet directly, check out our documentation on Update Cache, again available on this video description. One last thing to mention about the installer. Don't use a user-specific Sophos setup.exe received via email deployment. If you do, all devices will be associated with the Sophos Central user that was sent the email. Now let's proceed on creating a .bat script. We are going to be creating a .bat or bat script that will call this installer, so place the installer in a shared folder accessible to all devices that needs it. To create a bat script, open a text editor of your choosing and paste the script from the video description or the KB article. Amend the line, push, space double backslash server name, backslash share with the location of the installer package on your network. Save the file as Sophos Central Endpoint installed.bat and place it somewhere temporary that you can find later. You can place it anywhere in your system as long as you can locate it later on. Now let's proceed on deploying the script via GPO. To deploy the script via Active Directory, you can either create a new group policy or edit an existing one. In the next step, I'll be showing you how to create a new one. So to proceed, let's open the Group Policy Management console. Open the Run window, type gpmc.msc, and press Enter. Now right-click on the organizational unit where you need to deploy the Sophos Central Endpoint and select the option Create a GPO in this domain and link it here. Now enter a GPO name. For example, Sophos Central Windows Endpoint Deployment Policy. Right-click on the new GPO that you created and select Edit. This opens the Group Policy Management Editor window of the Sophos Central Windows Endpoint Deployment Policy GPO. Go to Computer Configuration, Policies, Windows Settings, Scripts, Startup Shutdown. On the right panel, double-click the Startup. Click the Show Files button. This will open the File Explorer in the location where the GPO will run the script from. Copy the Sophos Central Endpoint installed.bat script from the location you save it to and paste it. Now back in the Startup Property window, click on Add, then Browse. After clicking on Browse, we will see the directory which contains the file we pasted, Sophos Central Endpoint installed.bat. Select the file and click Open. Click Apply and OK. Now in the Group Policy Management window, click Sophos Central Windows Endpoint Deployment Policy GPO, go to the Scope tab, ensure that the links have the correct OU. Check that the security filtering contains your target user group. It does not have the user group where the Sophos Central Endpoint is intended to be deployed. Click Add to add them. Right-click on the OU, then select Group Policy Update to enforce the deployment of the new GPO. To force an update of the GPO, open the command prompt on the one of the target endpoint and run the command gpupdate/force, then reboot the computer. Now when the computer that has this policy applies to reboot, they'll run the bat script to install the central endpoint. I hope you found this video useful. Let us know by giving us a thumbs up on TechVids or like, comments and subscribe on YouTube. For further assistance, view and post question on community.sophos.com. Thanks for watching, take care,